The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer. Reading of the Journal.
In Senate, Sunday, May 15, 2022, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Saturday, May 14, 2022 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions. Messages from the Assembly. Secretary will read. Secretary will read.
Senator Reichman Melnick moves to discharge from the Committee on Health Assembly Bill number 8136B and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 3966B, third reading calendar 116. Senator Hoylman moves to discharge from the Committee on Health Assembly Bill number 187 and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 431A, third reading calendar 513. Senator Skoufis moves to discharge from the Committee on Investigation and Government Operations Assembly Bill number 9785 and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 8645, third reading calendar 800. Senator Harcum moves to discharge from the Committee on Higher Education Assembly Bill number 7754C and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 8533A, third reading calendar 885. Senator Jordan moves to discharge from the Committee on Transportation Assembly Bill number 7625A and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 6738A, third reading calendar 909. Senator Palumbo moves to discharge from the Committee on Investigation and Government Operations Assembly Bill number 4069 and substitute it for the identical Senate Bill 6889, third reading calendar 951.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Good afternoon, Madam President. I have a series of motions here. Amendments are offered to the following third reading calendar bills. By Senator Granardis, calendar 210, Senator Brisport, calendar 427, Senator Salazar, calendar 461, Senator Kruger, calendar 706, Senator Parker, calendar 715, Senator Skoufis, calendar 861, Senator Reichman-Melnick, calendar 889, Senator Parker, calendar 922, Senator Parker, calendar 923, Senator Kaplan, calendar 942, Senator Thomas, calendar 1026, Senator Hoylman, calendar 1041, Senator Cooney, calendar 1115, Senator Gianaris, calendar 131, Senator Kaminsky, calendar 973, Senator May, calendar 977, Senator Harcum, calendar 549, and Senator Liu, calendar 1086.
The amendments are received and the bills will retain their place on the third reading calendar. Senator Gianaris.
I now wish to call up the following bills which were recalled from the Assembly and are now at the desk. Senate print numbers 1826A and 6287B.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 248, Senate Print 1826A by Senator Skoufis, enactment of the State Finance Law. Calendar number 683, Senate Print 6287B by Senator Mannion, enactment of the Social Services Law and the Public Health Law.
Move to reconsider the vote by which these bills were passed.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White, I 61.
The bills are restored to their place on the third reading calendar.
Following amendments on those bills.
The amendments are received and the bills will retain their place on the third reading calendar. Senator Gianaris.
At this time, Madam President, there's a privilege resolution at the desk by Senator Kennedy. Please take that up, read it in its entirety, and recognize Senator Kennedy on the resolution.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 2634 by Senator Kennedy, expressing sincerest, heartfelt condolences to the Buffalo, New York community in the wake of the devastating tragedy which took place at a Tops grocery store on Jefferson Avenue, and applauding all those who acted immediately and heroically in the face of danger. Whereas the very principles of American freedom and the safety and security of every American at home and abroad were challenged by the unspeakable atrocities committed in the east side of Buffalo during a sunny afternoon on Saturday, May 14, 2022, at a Tops grocery store located on historic Jefferson Avenue. And whereas during this senseless act of violence, 10 innocent people were killed. Robert A. Drury, 32 years old, Geraldine Talley, 62 years old, Celestine Cheney, 65 years old, Catherine Massey, 72 years old, Pearl Young, 77 years old, Ruth Whitfield, 85 years old, Marcus D. Morrison, 52 years old, Andre McNeil, 53 years old, retired Buffalo police officer Aaron Salter, 55 years old, and Hayward Patterson, 67 years old. And whereas, in addition, Jennifer Warrington, 50 years old, Zaire Goodman, 20 years old, and Christopher Braden, 55 years old, were wounded, however, are expected to survive. And whereas, for all New Yorkers, the images of this horrific domestic act of terrorism rekindles heartbreaking memories and causes us to pause and reflect on our daily lives. And whereas the very heart and soul of America has once more been shaken to its core, and this tragedy stands as a reminder that such senseless acts of violence will not destroy the values that make America great. And whereas the power of human compassion and the strength and spirit of the American people were revealed in Buffalo as we learn of the immediate and heroic outpouring of service and concern for the victims of this act of terrorism and in its aftermath. And whereas this legislative body cannot express sufficient gratitude to those devoted first responders, including police officers, Erie County Sheriff Department deputies, and FBI agents, as well as paramedics and firefighters, who inspire us all by carrying out their sworn duties with great courage and bravery. And whereas the combined and coordinated efforts of these individuals and their swift responses are a testament to the spirit of unity and fellowship in the face of adversity and characterizes the best of America. And whereas the people of the state of New York stand steadfast in their solidarity with Buffalo, New York, all of whom were victimized by the city's worst mass shooting on Saturday, May 14, 2022. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this legislative body pause in its deliberations to express sincerest, heartfelt condolences to the victims and their families, and to applaud all those who acted immediately and heroically in the face of danger, and to extend to the people of Buffalo the sincere, best wishes and heartfelt prayers of all New Yorkers. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, suitably engrossed, be transmitted to the Honorable Byron Brown, Mayor of Buffalo, New York.
Senator Kennedy on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today with the deep pain of a broken heart on behalf of a grieving community in Buffalo, across New York, and across our nation. I want to thank Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for her support in bringing this resolution to the floor here today, and for all of our colleagues in standing in solidarity with us, Buffalonians, as we confront one of the saddest events in our hometown's history. Just over 48 hours ago, an individual filled with hate, with bigotry, and with evil in its purest and most disgusting form, walked into the Tops Friendly Markets on Jefferson Avenue, the only supermarket in a food desert in the heart of Buffalo's Black community, and opened fire. Within minutes, 10 innocent and loved people, all Black, were murdered in cold blood. They were targeted for one reason, and one reason only: the color of their skin. I stand to honor their memory here today as I read their names. Roberta A. Drury of Buffalo, age 32. Margus D. Morrison of Buffalo, age 52. Andre McNeil of Auburn, age 53. Aaron Salter of Lockport, age 55. Geraldine Talley of Buffalo, age 62. Celestine Cheney of Buffalo, age 65. Hayward Patterson of Buffalo, age 67. Catherine Massey of Buffalo, age 72. Pearl Young of Buffalo, age 77. Ruth Whitfield of Buffalo, age 86. Each of them leaves behind heartbroken loved ones. Each was robbed of America's promise of life and liberty. 3 more Buffalonians, including Zaire Goodman, the son of my staff member and head of diversity and inclusion, Zanetta Everhart, were shot and injured, along with Jennifer Warrington of Tonawanda and Christopher Braden of Lackawanna. Zaire was just doing his job, as he always does, like others that were shot that day, helping an elderly woman with her shopping cart in the parking lot after she had purchased food, striking Zaire in the neck. By the grace of God, that bullet, which was designed to explode upon impact and cause maximum damage, passed directly through his neck and out the back, with only shards embedded in him, so he survived. A week from today, Zaire will celebrate his 21st birthday. His mother has called it divine protection. It is certainly a miracle. A light in the midst of our darkest day. He is now at home in his mother's care. Our hearts are shattered for the families who won't be able to welcome their loved ones home, to provide them the tender, loving care that they too deserve. Our entire community, our entire state, and our entire nation is devastated. And now, in the wake of this massacre, we're left to wonder why. Why would someone drive for hours to commit a murder in cold blood? What would cause someone to be so hateful and so cruel? Why, after Charleston, after Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Las Vegas, after Orlando, after every one of the countless and senseless slaughters our country has witnessed, can an 18-year-old buy a weapon of war, go across state lines to buy modifications that are illegal here in New York, and add to another city on that list? And why, after everything we know, does right-wing mass media continue to propagate the vile ideology of white supremacy under the guise of so-called replacement theory, of critical race theory fear-mongering, and hours of winks and nudges that all combine to teach hate and numb us to empathy? Sadly, we know what that answer is. This is the hatred that has been a part of our nation even before we became a nation. But it's coming back stronger than ever before. That evil and that hatred. A whole generation that's being fed a steady diet of fear and lies on TV, on social media, and that's resulting in what we saw in Buffalo on a sunny, perfect Saturday afternoon, a day that should have brought Buffalonians of all races and ethnicities out to enjoy our beautiful city of good neighbors. We all must reject this evil worldview of white supremacy, and we need to call it out and root it out every single opportunity that we get and every time it rears its ugly head. Every one of us has a moral duty to call it out where we see it and when we see it, whether it's on social media, on our airwaves and TV, anywhere we hear or see it in the community, and even in the halls of our government. We haven't done enough as a state and as a nation. We must recommit ourselves here and now to combat this scourge on our society. And if we've ever needed justification for strong and ironclad federal assault weapon ban and background checks, this is it. This is it. This morally bankrupt worldview of white supremacy and white nationalism that's taken hold in our society must be stopped, and it must be stopped in its tracks today. Enough is enough. Buffalo is the city of good neighbors. But being good neighbors didn't prevent the devil from visiting us on Saturday afternoon. This is bigger than just our city of Buffalo. This is bigger than just our great empire state of New York. If we want to save our children's future, to protect our national union, and to build a better society, this has to end. And we need to take strong, decisive action. Tomorrow I'll be back home in Buffalo. President Biden and First Lady Biden will be in Buffalo to help mend our heartbroken community and comfort the families of the souls that were lost and those that continue to grieve. We must continue to pray for the lives that were lost, for their families, for our community in Buffalo, for our state and as a nation. And I know that we have to do better, that we recognize that this was not okay, that America is better than this, that New York is better than this, and we will do better. I want to thank all of my colleagues for the outpouring of support and for communities across our state, our nation, and the globe that have reached out, that have offered their generosity of their heart and their spirit and their soul to say that they are with us in Buffalo, New York, as we struggle through this difficult time. May those 10 beautiful souls rest in peace. Please join us, Madam President, in remembering each and every one of them in a moment of silence.
Senator Kennedy. Senator Kennedy, because there are a number of speakers who wish to speak, they've asked that the moment of silence occur at the end of the speakers, so everyone can take their seat. Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you.
Resolution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Suddenly, the energy leaves you. Totally heartbroken. I want to yell, but I also want to cry. A 77-year-old grandmother, a 53-year-old going out to buy a cake for his grandson. I'll be back in 15 minutes. A 67-year-old deacon. The list goes on. It was people going about their daily life on a beautiful Saturday in Buffalo. We had a long, hard, ugly winter. It's one of our first great weekends. Everyone was out. Stores were crowded. Streets were crowded. It was springtime jubilation, until it wasn't. This all happened in less than 3 minutes. Less than 3 minutes, all these lives were changed. All these grandsons, granddaughters, nieces, nephews, neighbors, they'll never see those people again. 3 minutes. How could that be? My kids are out of college now. They're living out of town. They called in tears. They want to know, for me to explain what happened. I can't explain to a 22-year-old what happened because you can't explain it. The city is filled with tears. You couldn't hear a pin drop all of Saturday and all of Sunday in Buffalo. And while, we appreciate the gestures, the outreach, the president coming, we'd rather we didn't have any of it and this didn't happen. And each time this happens, we struggle to explain it, like I tried to explain to my kids. You want to say it's unexplainable. I don't know how this happens in America. But that's really not the truth. It's really not the truth. Because you know what happened in a historically black church in Charleston in 2015? black people were murdered because they were black people. Do you know what happened at a gay nightclub in Orlando in 2016? People were murdered because they were gay. Do you know what happened in Pittsburgh in 2018 as a synagogue? People were murdered for the sole fact that they were Jewish. A Walmart in El Paso, Texas in 2019, people were murdered because they were Mexican American. And now a supermarket in Buffalo in 2022. I don't know whether to yell or to cry. Who did this? A man-child, 18 years old. For the love of God, how does an 18-year-old get this much hate in their heart? And how did they get an assault weapon? They've probably never been to Buffalo before. They drove 2.5 hours from their bucolic country town because they were afraid of black people and minorities taking over the country. And this 18-year-old man-child, he thought he had to respond to the call of action. Where does this call come from? It's all over our media. Turn on Fox News. You'll hear it. Go to any of the blogs. You'll hear it. The replacement theory. There's an elitist conspiracy taking place in America to have minorities replace white people. You may laugh and say, well, that's the craziest thing in the world. Well, almost every one of those mass murders I just read, they were fueled by that theory. How could it be? How could it be that this is creeping its way through cable news, the internet, now into mainstream right-wing political discourse? Well, we all know about the replacement theory. Well, that's what happens when this thing goes to check. So who's to blame? 18-year-old gunman, that's for sure. How about the gun industry? Convincing Americans, hey, maybe it would be a really cool thing to do is buy an AR-15. 20 years ago, no one had a gun like that in America. Now they mass market them. Cheap guns, cheap Bushmaster guns. Under $1,000, you can buy a gun that can kill a whole supermarket full of people in 3 minutes. Gun industry sells loads that are designed to maim and kill humans, to tear through their flesh. These are not loads designed to take down a deer. These are loads designed in a laboratory, in any of the ammunition manufacturers in America, to kill us. Not to kill a rabbit, not to kill a squirrel. How about the paramilitary industry? This kid looks like he was out of some special forces regiment. Who sells Kevlar helmets to the American public? Who sells armor-plated technical gear? In my lifetime, that was only available under military license. Now anybody with a crackpot conspiracy theory can go buy weapons of war. And certainly we know the biggest commercialization of this hateful rhetoric all comes through cable news. It comes through AM radio. Yesterday I was driving around. I tuned in a few times to AM radio to hear live updates. And I didn't get a chance to turn my radio off before the call-ins started, because my day would have been a lot better if I hadn't heard the call-ins. Hardly any thoughts and prayers. Local AM radio. You know what they wanted to talk about? They wanted to talk about the replacement theory. That's what they wanted to talk about. They didn't want to talk about the people who lost their lives. They didn't want to talk about the people who didn't come home. Not a lot of sympathy, not a lot of empathy, but boy, were they pretty clear about what was going wrong in America. Now, we could say this gunman didn't come from Buffalo, and that might give us some sort of salve on our wounds, but those call-in shows that I heard all yesterday afternoon, they were just my friends and neighbors. So, what's the call to action? I wish I had a real easy one, but we all know it. We all hear it. We've all heard it through our lifetimes, right? You hear the off-color joke. You hear the off-color comment. You hear the people on cable news. I might go on the same AM radio program. I'm not going on those programs anymore. We're at a point in America where I'd like to say I don't want to be in the same category as El Paso and Pittsburgh. So Buffalo's in there now, and I'd love to stand in front of you to say, this is it. It'll never happen again. We're going to stop it. But I'm despondent today. I don't have any faith that we, as Broome County residents, as Erie County residents, that we're going to come together and actually stop this, that we're going to have the courage to stop this. I don't have the confidence that we as New Yorkers come together, and I don't have any confidence that we as Americans can come together and recognize that we're all American, that there are no others, outsiders, interlopers, people who should not be given the full rights of the Constitution. I don't think we're there. I feel sorry for the next city, the next town, the next church, the next synagogue who has to go through the pain that we're experiencing in Buffalo, New York. And I tell you, I pray to God there is no next city, but I wish in my intellectual brain that I wish that could be true. But I don't find that to be true today.
Thank you, Senator Ryan. Senator Helming on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Today I rise to express my outrage and my disgust over the horrific actions of a sick, evil person who murdered innocent people for no reason other than the color of their skin. It's gotta stop. The hatred, the evil, the picking out people because of their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation, their race, it has got to stop, and we've got to take actions to move further in that direction. But today, I have to say that I am still reeling from this whole tragedy, not only as a senator, but as a mother and a grandmother. Today's my grandson's first birthday, and I think of these families who are just shattered now. They've suffered a loss that I can't even begin to imagine. One of the victims that Senator Kennedy mentioned was from Cayuga County, lives in the city of Auburn, a 53-year-old man by the name of Andre McNeil, the father of a 3-year-old son. I think it was Senator Ryan who mentioned that Andre was at Tops picking up a birthday cake. I'm telling you, I'm shaking standing here. It makes me sick. His son is now going to grow up without a father. I think whether you're from Buffalo, whether you're from Auburn, or whether you're from downstate, the Bronx, the Queens, this hits too close to home for all of us as parents, as grandparents, as sisters and brothers, as neighbors and friends. Our collective community was attacked by terror, by hatred, and we mourn together. I really want to take a moment and thank all of the brave men and women who came to aid their fellow citizens. There are images that have been all over the media showing, I saw a lot of photos showing law enforcement officers comforting family members, wrapping their arms around them and trying to do whatever they could to aid their fellow citizens. I want to thank those police officers, the EMS workers, the firefighters, and the first responders who answered this call. There really are no words today that can heal the pain of this reality. Today, though, we stand together with the victim's family and with the entire Buffalo community and all those who have been impacted by this horrific event. I know words aren't enough, and to say our thoughts and prayers are with them, but prayers are meaningful to me, and my thoughts and prayers are with them. And today, we are all Buffalo strong. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Helming. Senator Lanza on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak on this resolution brought to the floor by my good friend, Senator Kennedy. My heart goes out to you and your community. And of course, the victims and their families are and will continue to be in my prayers. I believe in the power of prayer, Madam President. I think this is a good time for all of us in the state of New York to pray. I thought this was going to be simply that, a moment of reflection. I suppose it's just too hard for people in politics to pass on the opportunity to speak in terms of politics. We could talk a lot about why things like this happen. There are a lot of factors. At the end of the day, the murderer is a sick, lost, depraved, evil person. And his evil has stuck a dagger through the heart of our state. There are a lot of societal influences and causes and problems and factors that make this more and more a possibility in our society. But if we're going to talk about Fox, we should talk about CNN. I didn't start this. This is what I listen to. I see plenty of hate and division on CNN. I see it in schools. I see it in society. It is on the internet. It is in politics. It is in Congress. It is in the Senate. It is in New York. It is in California. It is in Florida. It is in Minnesota. Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King said, the only way to defeat hate is with love. It'd be nice if we returned to those types of conversations. New York City, my beloved city, last year, 500 people were murdered. They were white, they were black, they were Latino, they were Asian, they were gay, they were straight, they were Jewish, they were Muslim, they were Christian. Are we really going to do this, Madam President? Shouldn't we really look at the causes? Shouldn't we start to teach our children that they are loved? Shouldn't we teach them to love? Isn't that the message that we adults, we elected officials, should be imparting into the next generation? I see it on Staten Island. Kids are taught in school that they are hated or that they do hate. And it's got to stop. This is the result of it. White supremacy? You've got to be a moron beyond being evil to subscribe to that sort of bias. We all know that. Hate of all kind, discrimination of all kind, is wrong and evil. I promise, Madam President, I'm not going to use this tragedy for the purpose of getting elected or to advance the cause of anyone else getting elected or for the cause of preventing someone from getting elected. There are 10 lives that have been lost, as Senator Kennedy pointed out. 7 souls. And really the cause for all of this is hatred and evil. And we could root it out. But we've got to come together. We've got to join together. There are plenty of things that it is appropriate for us to disagree on. Plenty. And we should, and we must. But there are some things that we must unite. And this is one of them. Tell those families that it's because of Fox News or CNN or this or that. That's great consolation, Madam President. We all know in our hearts what the problem is. The problem is the fact that we've allowed hate to really, across all lines, fester in society, sped through the internet. We've ignored the problems that are right in front of our face. Madam President, I pray for the victims of this crime.
Thank you. Senator Akshar on the resolution.
Madam President, thank you. Senator Kennedy, Senator Ryan, on behalf of my family, my team, and all of my constituency back at home, we want to offer our condolences for the events as they transpired this Saturday. I want to call that event exactly what it was. It was a cowardly act. It was an act of domestic terrorism by, yes, a white supremacist, a violent extremist, motivated by hate, motivated by racism. Important that I rise today because not only do the people in this room now know, not only do the people across this great state now know, people across the world know that the perpetrator of this crime came from my community, came from Broome County. It's important that I rise to let my colleagues in this room know, and let New Yorkers know, and let people know across this globe, frankly, that the actions of that young man in no way reflect the people of Broome County. In no way do those actions reflect the people of the Southern Tier. The people where I am from, we do not care about the color of one's skin. We do not care about one's religion. We don't care about their sexual orientation. We are a community that loves one another, just like you do in Buffalo. We are a community that cares about one another, just like you do in Buffalo. And as I said, we're a community that supports one another, just like you do in Buffalo. My distinguished colleague from Buffalo, Senator Ryan, you said they came from. Let us remind ourselves it wasn't they came from, he came from that community. But as I said, he doesn't reflect the people of the community that I so proudly represent. I think we have some options here. And it is truly my hope, Madam President, that we not continue down this path of right-wing this, left-wing that. We don't continue down a path in which we add fuel to the fire or we fan the flames. We don't allow this conversation to become hyper-political, that we allow this issue to not divide us, but as Senator Lanza said, unite us. As colleagues in this august body, as New Yorkers, that truly is my hope, is that we can find some common ground around this issue to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Senator Ryan, you mentioned many cities. Binghamton is not immune to mass shootings. 2009, the American Civic Association, 13 people lost their lives then, long before I was elected, but a member of law enforcement. So our community knows, too, how you feel. But, Madam President, it truly is my hope that we can unite around this issue and move the policy and move the discussion in a very positive way to help New Yorkers. And I'll repeat what Senator Lanza said. I think now is the time for us all to do a little praying. My prayer, of course, is that God will put his mighty and powerful hands on the people of Buffalo as you mourn. Madam President, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Akshar. Senator Borrello on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to share my condolences, my support, and my outrage with my fellow Western New Yorkers. Senator Ryan, Senator Kennedy, thank you for speaking today. We may disagree on some things, but I do know one thing. Western New York is resilient, and we are a close-knit community. Even though I live 35, 40 miles away from the scene of this despicable act, I know people there. A good friend of mine is actually a pharmacist for many years at that location. Thankfully, she wasn't working that day. But the pharmacist that was working was grazed by a bullet and is recovering now. It is a grim reminder that this can happen even in the city of good neighbors, even in a community like Western New York that is so strong. It's also a grim reminder that there is evil in this world. We often try to explain that away. But that evil exists, and it festered inside of this despicable human being. He drove for hours. He got out of that car. Every moment, an opportunity to say to himself, I shouldn't be doing this, but he didn't. His isolation, his anger, his evil, it grew. And the people on that beautiful day in Buffalo suffered as a result. As a community, Western New York suffers as a result. And that despicable human being is now in custody. Thank God for our law enforcement, for our first responders. They put themselves in harm's way as they always do. I honestly only wish he would have pulled that trigger when he put that gun under his neck. It would have saved us, even though we wouldn't have gotten some answers, it would have saved a lot more grief, quite frankly. A retired police officer who probably knew at that moment that his life was going to come to an end. Did he turn tail and run? No. He fired shots at a man wearing armor that he knew would likely not strike. But he did it anyway, because he was going to do his part. And he is indeed a hero. We as a society have devalued life. We've allowed our children to be hateful, to live in a virtual world. And that is why this evil has continued to fester. And we can make excuses and we can be political, but the reality is that is what happened. We've allowed them to live in a virtual world where someone can die and then in a video game be resurrected, where someone can listen over and over again to evil, despicable theories and suffer no consequence. We live in a world, quite frankly, where we have ignored, because we are concerned, the great need to address those with violent mental illness and tendencies. We've shut down hospitals to deal with that. We've shut down observation beds. We've actually said we don't want to give mental health professionals the opportunity to take a little more time to evaluate someone to see if they are dangerous enough that they should be held. We want to place blame, but the reality is evil exists. And until we recognize the fact that we are allowing that evil to fester, this will not come to an end. My friends and neighbors in Western New York, we will do as we always do. We will rally. We will set aside our differences and we will help one another. That's already happening. We've seen that. It will continue. That is the community that Western New York is, and I'm proud to be part of that community. Regardless of my political affiliations, my political philosophies, I am proud to stand here as a fellow Western New Yorker. So, Madam President, we move forward now. The pain that drives us, I hope, will help lead us to a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Borrello. Senator Bailey on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. James Baldwin famously said, to be black and to be semi-conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. Let me say that again for you, to be in a constant state of rage. My rage is pointed in many directions. To the coward white supremacist and the beliefs that he holds that are espoused by many people. My rage sits squarely with him. My rage sits for those who want to pontificate about what this is and what it's not for a YouTube clip or 15 likes on your Twitter or your Instagram. You think the family of those victims give a damn about your Twitter or Instagram right now? You think they care? You think they care about being targeted? You know what they think of right now, Madam President, what I believe they think? Their family members or friends or loved ones went to a supermarket. Add that to the list of sitting on your couch, doing nothing, going for a jog, driving, walking. Just a typical day of being black in America. Just a typical day. Add that to the list of questions that your kids ask you. Is it safe to go there, Dad? Can we go to places like that? Can we go to ShopRite now? Can we go to Fairway, Dad? Will they do that to us? To be black and to be semi-conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. I am enraged for my friends in Western New York. I've spoken to Tim Kennedy probably 100 times on the telephone, and I've never heard his voice like I heard it on Saturday. Frustrated, confused, sad, not knowing what was next. My heart aches for you, Tim, and for you, Sean, and for all of Western New York. This is one of these scenarios. Well, if you're really going to talk about let it be a teachable moment or a pivotal moment in our society, then I want to make sure we commend the courage of people who are not to be afraid of what this was, of white supremacy. Thank you, Senator Akshar. Thank you. Because some people like to dance around what it was. That's white supremacy, folks. Call it what you want, but that's what it was. This is not about your political affiliation. It's not about what you believe, who should be where in office. This is about 400 plus years of the constant and consistent devaluation of black life in this country. Period. God speaks to us.
That's right. That's right.
God moves.
That's right.
God moves.
That's right.
I am a man of faith, and I believe that coincidence does not happen. What is supposed to happen is supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen. And the thunder that rolls through this very chamber right now was giving us a message.
Got it.
It's telling us that in the unofficial black national anthem of Lift Every Voice and Sing, if we lift every voice and sing, that is the way we propel things. Not the Democratic voice and sing, not the Republican voice and sing, not the Western New York or the Hudson Valley or the New York City or Westchester County voice and sing. This is every voice and sing. So if we're going to do it, let's do it. I look forward to that day that Dr. King dreamed of in 1968. When he talked about our children being able to walk as one. I am prayerful for the families that we've lost. And I hope that I can take this crystal ball that we have and see that this won't happen again. But until we're unafraid to address our fears, until we're comfortable with being uncomfortable, my crystal ball says this might not be the last time. But 63 of us in this chamber, we have a job to do. I plan on doing it. God bless the souls of the faithful departed.
Thank you, Senator Bailey. Senator Rath on the resolution.
Madam President, 2 days ago, evil, wicked, hatred, and racism affected our hometown of Buffalo, New York. I look at my colleagues who are fellow Buffalonians, and our hearts were broken. It's one of the days that we'll all remember where we were at the exact moment that we got the news. The state of shock is an understatement to how this impacted our community, how it's going to impact each and every one of us in our community and everyone in the state for a very, very long time. My prayers are with the victims. My prayers are with the families. My prayers are with all those affected. And my prayers haven't stopped. They haven't stopped in 2 days. They call Buffalo the city of good neighbors. It absolutely is. But it's not just Buffalo that's a city of good neighbors. Western New York is a community of good neighbors. We are all unified, not in partisan politics. We're all unified as fellow Western New Yorkers. Senator Kennedy, Senator Ryan, we've joked about that in the past, how we're Western New Yorkers first. And this shattered our hearts, shocked our communities. And with this incredible news, there's an opportunity for love. There's an opportunity for unity. There's an opportunity for us to all come together and look beyond whatever partisanship might be out there to lift up our Western New York community. At a time in which our communities need to be lifted up more so than ever, this is arguably the darkest day in Buffalo history, which makes it the darkest day in Western New York history. We are saddened beyond belief. We are broken, and we're looking for answers. Together, I call on each and every one of my colleagues here in the State Senate for unity, love, and us working together to root out hatred, to root out evil, and to root out all these negative forces in our society. In my heart, I know we can do this. I believe we can do this, and we must. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Rath. Leader Ort on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. It's always tougher when you go towards the end because a lot of things have been said, and I think said quite well by all of my colleagues. I want to thank Senator Kennedy for bringing the resolution. I just wish he didn't have to. Very often we'll get up here and we'll talk about resolutions, we'll talk about bills, and we're speaking in general terms or we're speaking in abstract terms because we're talking about people sometimes that we don't know, or we're talking about situations that we're unfamiliar with, but we may have a strong belief or passion on. For Senator Kennedy, that was not the case on Saturday. Staff member's son was in that grocery store. Now, we all have staff, and we all know, if you're an elected official worth their salt, your staff is really an extension of your family. Sometimes you see them more than your family. And I can only imagine what was going through Senator Kennedy's head, his heart, and I can only imagine the sense of relief, however tragic, that his staff member's son made it out alive, even though 10 other people did not. And I'm sure there are people in that store for the rest of their lives who will always wonder why I got out and someone else didn't. That's a real, trust me, that is what will go through their mind. It may not be tomorrow, it might be 10 years from now. I wish I could unequivocally sit here and say, this is what we need to do. I, for one, can't. I have ideas. I have thoughts on what we should do, what we could have done. But I don't know that that would have prevented what happened. My feeling is if it was that simple, it might have been done already. And no doubt there'll be a time we have an opportunity to do some good out of tragedies like this. And there'll be a time for political debate, for policy debate, for what the right thing to do. But we can't shy away from what we saw on Saturday. I mean, you think of the hate to drive 3 hours to go kill people you never met when you're 18 years old. That's supposed to be the start of your life. Everything's in front of you. Not the case for this young man. And I know when we have tragedies like this, grief demands an answer. And very often the answer isn't satisfying enough. If the shooter had come out and he had been the devil himself, Satan incarnate, maybe that would have satisfied us. But it's not. It's an 18-year-old kid by most standards, an adult, but a kid, an 18-year-old kid with that much hate at 18, subscribing to an intellectually vapid, completely ridiculous, debunked theory that we thought had been thrown in the dustbin of history. But there's corners of the world where hate will always fester, like a virus, or in dark corners on the web, in dark chat rooms, in the recesses of his own mind, and maybe other places that we don't know. That hate grew and was festered. And there will be a time and a place to talk about what we can do about that, and I think we as elected leaders have an obligation to have that dialogue. But I'm not going to have it here, because this is a somber event, where we're trying to remember the 10 people who didn't come out of that grocery store, the 10 people whose lives ended because they went grocery shopping, or in the case of one individual, Aaron Salter, who lived in Lockport in my district, because he went to work. A retired Buffalo police officer. Probably thought after being a retired cop in Buffalo that the most dangerous days of his life were behind him. But true to his training and true to the ethos of our law enforcement, and it gives me no pleasure to say this, but he died a hero trying to protect the people in that store. And I want to thank the law enforcement who did show up that day very quickly, because we know that this individual's rampage was not meant to end at 10 people in Tops. We know that he intended to go down the street into the neighborhood to kill more people. So powerful was his hate. So, to the people of Buffalo and Western New York, our hearts are heavy. Not only if you're from Western New York, if you're from New York, if you're an American. To the families, I think was said by Senator Bailey, they don't care about the politics or the TikTok video or the press release. None of it brings back their loved one. None of it makes it okay. None of it explains it. And I fear that we will fall short in that task anyways. But we have to try, no doubt. So, Madam President, on behalf of myself and our conference, I certainly extend our deepest condolences, our prayers to the families who lost their loved ones that day. May they rest in peace, and may they not have died in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ort. Majority Leader Stuart Cousins on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. This is such a hard thing, and my heart goes out to Senator Kennedy, Ryan, all of my colleagues in Western New York, all of my colleagues who woke up in the skin we're in when, once again, we were reminded that just being can be perilous. Nobody can take away the pain of those families, the community, Western New York. The condolences, the prayers, they will help. No, the families don't care about tweeting and politics, but they do care, I'm sure, that we prove that their loved ones did not die in vain, because we actually did do something different, learned something from what rhetoric can do. Understand that each of us have a role to play in creating a society that is indeed respectful. stop pretending that this is one thing here and everything else is fine. All these, this is one isolated and everything. No, it's not. It's not. It's not. We all love our neighbors. But it's everybody else that may be a suspect, may be harmful. We got to be afraid. And now it's amplified. It used to be kind of embarrassing, but now it's not. Now you're out there and you can say anything and it's okay. And yeah, you get more likes and more tweets and more publicity. And people who are spouting these theories actually are really high rated. People are listening. They're listening. People are winning and losing because they are saying these things. People don't want to be political about it, but the only way you seem to be winning in politics these days is by espousing hate and fear and what do we do to stop those people from those people? That's what we're doing. And yeah, all of a sudden we wake up in our neighborhoods. It's amazing how many people are impacted. People whose employees, people who lived in different places, people who worked in, people who came from different places. We're New York, and we are supposed to be, on another level. And guess what? We're not. We're just like everybody else. But we know that even though we don't want to have these conversations, it's things like this that actually spark these conversations, where for a brief moment, maybe we open our hearts and our minds and say, wait a minute. Is truth that scary? Is understanding the history of this great country that scary? Even if it doesn't depict everybody in the best light, it doesn't mean that we've done everything wrong. But we have to be able to say that there were things that happened that place us in places where we may not want to be, but if we continue to pretend that it's not a problem, and when we continue to elevate voices that exacerbate fear and ignorance and hatred because we can win a race or two, we will find that each and every one of us will have incidents like this, and suddenly this American dream, inspired by an enlightened Constitution that brought all of us as far as we've come, will mean nothing. Nothing. I am sorry that we're having this conversation because of these tragic loss of lives. I'm sorry that we're compelled to confront white supremacy, racism, hatred on the backs of those you love in your communities. But if we in this day aren't willing to look very clearly at a role that we can play going forward to reset, to think twice, to roll back, to stop, and to begin again from a period that honors the sacrifice of these 10 souls. Madam President, I think we are ready for our moment of silence. And I pray that we as a body continue to make an example of who we can be, not only as politicians, but as real public servants, making this a New York that leads in bringing people together.
Senator Gianaris. The question is on the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to all my colleagues for engaging in what was undoubtedly a very difficult and emotional conversation. And thank you, of course, to our leader for her always appropriate remarks. All right, can we now move on to the next resolution? Please take up previously adopted Resolution 1647 by Senator Cooney. Read its title only and recognize Senator Cooney.
Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 1647 by Senator Cooney, mourning the death of George R. Miles Sr., meritorious veteran, distinguished citizen, and devoted member of his community.
Senator Cooney on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I walked into this Senate chamber with a heavy heart, with Buffalo on our mind, because we, of course, have just recounted how difficult this is and how we've broken the promise of America. And I've been thinking about all of those who have come before today, and all of those who have fought bravely to make sure that we can live in this country, we can have these types of important conversations and civic dialogue. And today, Madam President, I'd like to recognize a member of my community, a well-respected Rochesterian and gentleman, tireless faith and dedication, whose life of public service and accomplishments continue to serve as an inspiration for others. A resident of the town of Greece, George R. Miles Sr. proudly served our country as a member of the United States Army and National Guard for 35 years. While serving with the military, George had the distinct honor of protecting the national capital as a member of the Old Guard. He was also assigned to the Honor Guard for President Truman, as well as to guard the tomb of the unknown soldier. During the Korean War, George was deployed to East Asia with the 1st Cavalry Division C Company Infantry of the 7th Cavalry Regiment. And while serving on the front lines, his company was pinned down by enemy fire. He risked his life to help protect a fellow soldier from being hit. George was injured by a shell blast, and in the process was taken to the local MASH unit. This is a story which is worth telling on this Senate floor because it's absolutely incredible. Because in the moment that George believed he had seen divine intervention, because in the hospital he was taken to just happened to be where his brother, who he had grown up separately from, in different foster homes, was also taken. And they were reunited there after a fellow corpsman noticed they had the same last name. Neither even knew each other was in the Army. Perhaps even more incredibly, George's brother, Dick, was in the same division as he and was part of the company that was asked to provide supporting fire for George's company leading up to the incident that sent him to the hospital. While they were both not discharged at the same time, the brothers remained close and were both rewarded Purple Hearts back in Rochester for their service. George continued his commitment to public service, employed by the great city of Rochester for 30 years, and was an active member of several communities of faith. Today would have been George's 90th birthday, and his daughter, Joanne, shared with me that she and his family believe he is with us today in spirit, looking down with his beaming smile. And that is the strength of his spirit can be felt as we honor his life today. His family was not able to attend in person, but his children are watching via live stream, and I'm thankful for their help in sharing this important story with all of us. May we work to honor and keep the freedoms that he and so many others have fought to preserve over their lifetime to our great nation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Cooney. The resolution was previously adopted on January 19th. Senator Gianaris. Senator Serrano.
Thank you. At the request of the sponsor, the resolution is open for co-sponsorship.
The resolution is open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor of the resolution, please notify the desk. Senator Serrano.
Thank you. Please call on Senator Cooney for an introduction.
Senator Cooney.
Thank you, Madam President, getting my workout in here today. I'd like to introduce a number of guests that are visiting the Senate today from the Coalition of Asian American IPAs. May, of course, is AAPI month, and as a member of the AAPI community, I am honored to highlight the work of this organization that has both regional and statewide impact. KIPA's mission is to unite top healthcare professionals in providing high-quality care while utilizing the most cost-effective approach in enhancing the interests of relevant stakeholders in the public and private sectors. They strive to be a thought leader in delivering quality and affordable healthcare to meet the challenges of Asian American health disparities in the great state of New York, in its metropolitan area of New York City, and expanding regions. KIPA takes pride in its provider network with over 1,000 private practices and over 70 specialties. They help deliver medical services and care to approximately 500,000 Asian New Yorkers. Joining us today is Dr. George Liu, President and CEO, Peggy Sheng, Chief Operating Officer, Shirley Huang, Director of Public Relations, and Eliza Eng, Chief Medical Officer. Please join me in welcoming KIPA and thanking these members for their service to ensuring quality health care and addressing Asian American health needs in New York.
Thank you, Senator Cooney. To our guests, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of this House. We recognize you here today. Senator Gianaris.
At this time, can we take up the reading of the calendar, please?
The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 2, Senate Print 284C by Senator Myrie, enact to amend the election law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect January 1st, 2023.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Senator Borrello to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. Certainly I have deja vu again. I did debate this bill with Senator Myrie, and I expressed my extreme concerns with the idea of letting someone vote somewhere where they are not actually registered to vote, because the discussion was on disenfranchising people. And as I said then, I think a bigger disenfranchisement would be having a ballot thrown out because you voted somewhere and voted for people on the ballot that you aren't allowed to vote for because you don't live in that community. Senator Myrie said 14,000 people showed up at the wrong polling place last year, and I imagine most of those people went to the right polling place. Now, no one's going to tell those people that their ballot may not count, that the votes that they cast may not count should they fill this out entirely, even for those folks that they are not entitled to vote for. That concerns me. It's confusing, and in the end, I don't think we're doing a service to our communities and certainly not to the voters. We have 10 days of voting in every election. That, to me, is a better solution than essentially deceiving someone that they may actually be voting in the right place for the wrong person. Thank you.
Senator Borrello to be recorded in the negative. Announce results.
In relation to calendar number 2, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Serino, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Ayes 42, nays 19.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 116, Assembly number 8136B by Assemblymember Paulin, enact to amend the public health law and the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Senator Reichlin Melnick to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This will be a brief explanation because, frankly, this is a common sense bill which we have passed in the past, but it looks like the Assembly is finally going to move it. Because for too many years, parents would send their kids to camps. And most people assume that if you send your kid to camp, that the counselors have gone through a background check, that the camp has had to make sure they're not on the sex offender registry, and anything else that might keep your kids safe. And yet, thousands and thousands of kids in New York attend unregulated, unregistered camps. And these are usually single-purpose camps. It could be a soccer clinic for a few weeks over the summer. It could be, a baseball camp. It could be a chess camp, anything like that. But the reality of the current law is that the counselors and the adults who are interacting with kids in those camps do not have to be screened whether or not they are on the sex offender registry. And so this bill that we're passing today will require that for the first time, that no matter whether it's a registered or an unregistered camp in New York State, an employee of that camp, a counselor, will need to be screened to make sure they're on the make sure they're not on the sex offender registry, of course, and make sure that our kids are safe. So I'm grateful to the majority leader for bringing it to the floor, and I proudly support this bill.
Senator Reichlin Melnick to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 123, Senate Print 23B by Senator Kaplan, an act to amend the state finance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect April 1st, 2023.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 129, Senate Print 244B by Senator Mayer, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 412, Senate Print 1078B by Senator Granardis, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 414, Senate Print 6202 by Senator Kennedy, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law and the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 7, this act shall take effect on the 180th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar number 414, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Gallivan, Griffo, Jordan, Lanza, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Ritchie, Steck, and White. Also Senator Tedisco. Ayes 47, nays 14.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 483, Senate Print 7610B by Senator Gorin, an act in relation to permitting India Pentecostal Assembly Incorporated to file an application for real property tax exemption.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 483, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar and O'Mara. Ayes 59, nays 2.
The bill is passed.
Senator Brooks from the Committee on Local Government.
There's a substitution at the desk. The secretary will read.
Senator Brooks from the committee. Senator Brooks moved to discharge from the Committee on Local Government Assembly Bill number 9307A and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7864A, third reading calendar 485.
Substitution so ordered. The secretary will read.
Calendar number 485, Assembly number 9307A by Assemblymember Griffin, an act to amend the General Municipal Law and the Public Authorities Law.
The bill is laid aside for the day.
Calendar number 513, Assembly number 187 by Assemblymember Gottfried, an act to amend the Social Services Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 120th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 514, Senate Print 559 by Senator Harkam, an act in relation to determining whether the state can claim federal financial participation for coverage and payment for certain prescription digital therapeutics.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 520, Senate Print 968A by Senator Gorin, an act to amend the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 530, Senate Print 5648 by Senator Parker, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 532, Senate Print 7672 by Senator Brooke, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 540, Senate Print 7107B by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect 90 days before it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 584, Senate Print 554A by Senator May, an act to amend the elder law and the economic development law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 90th day and it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 630, Senate Print 4529 by Senator Hargrim, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day and it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 630, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Felder, Gallivan, Griffo, Jordan, Oberacker, Ort, and Skoufis. Ayes 53, nays 8.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 632, Senate Print 5130 by Senator Kennedy, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 632, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, Martucci, Matera, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rath, Sereno, Steck, Tedisco, and White. Also Senator Oberacker. Ayes 43, nays 18.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 713, Senate Print 5237C by Senator Gorin, an act to amend the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 120th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 767, Senate Print 8134 by Senator Breslin, an act to amend the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 775, Senate Print 52A by Senator Kaplan, an act in relating to establishing the Nassau County and the Queens County Border Task Force.
Read the last section.
Section 8, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 775, voted in the negative, Senator Akshar. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 800, Assembly number 9785 by Assemblymember Gunther, an act to amend the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 801, Senate Print 1231A by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the General Municipal Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 811, Senate Print 7912 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the State Technology Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 822, Senate Print 7859A by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the public housing law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 853, Senate Print 1409B by Senator Rivera, an act to amend the public health law.
The bill is laid aside for the day.
Calendar number 860, Senate Print 4412A by Senator May, an act to amend the elder law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 862, Senate Print 5084C by Senator Harkam, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 12, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Senator Harkam to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. This has certainly been a very bleak day for all of us, and yet our work must go on. We are in the midst of the worst overdose crisis this nation has ever faced. We're on pace for over 108,000 fatalities, a million in the last 10 years. And while we appreciate the governor and the attorney general providing extra resources to the battle, we will not be saving lives if we're pouring resources into a system that is not treating our patient population with integrated care. 70% of people who present with substance use disorder have an underlying mental health disorder, 90% when they present in crisis. One study showed 50% of people who present with mental illness also have underlying substance use disorders. The point of all this is we have two siloed systems, OASIS and OMH, two separate funding streams, two separate bureaucracies for families to navigate, two separate sets of books, two separate sets of rules, and two separate doors, literally, even for the same clinic. If they have a dual license, you still need to go into a separate entrance to get mental health treatment. Aside from being stigmatizing, that does not work. Not a week goes by that I don't get a call from a family who's lost a loved one who said that their family member was in and out of treatment 6, 7, 8, 9 times, but because they never treated their underlying mental health disorder, they kept self-medicating until finally fentanyl caught up with them in fentanyl roulette. So this bill will break down the barriers, it will break down the silos, it will follow the federal government's recommendation for integrated care, and this will create a system with no wrong door. I vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Harkam to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 862, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Griffo, Helming, Jordan, Martucci, Matera, Ort, Palumbo, Ritchie, Tedisco, and White. Ayes 51, nays 10.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 885, Assembly number 7754C by Assemblymember McDonald, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 901, Senate Print 5676 by Senator Rivera, an act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 909, Assembly number 7625A by Assemblymember Werner, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Senator Jordan to explain her vote.
Mr. President and Madam President and my colleagues, I rise to explain my vote on my bipartisan legislation honoring our forever First Lady of Saratoga Springs, horse racing, and the backstretch community, Saratoga's favorite daughter and patron, Mary Lou Whitney. My bipartisan bill amends the state highway law to rename a portion of Route 9P, also known as Union Avenue in Saratoga Springs, to be the Mary Lou Whitney Way. It's impossible to overstate Mary Lou Whitney's profound positive impact on Saratoga Springs, Saratoga County, and the horse racing industry, as well as her contributions to the many dedicated, hardworking professionals who make that industry a reality, our backstretch community. Mary Lou Whitney embodies all that is good and noble and proud of Saratoga. Her inspirational spirit of giving back, touching and transforming lives, of making a genuine difference, is an indelible, irreplaceable legacy of service to others and supporting the community. Mary Lou Whitney was beloved by everyone in the community, regardless of who you are, what you do, or where you're from, and whatever your station is in life. Mary Lou Whitney treated every person with dignity and decency, compassion and kindness, respect and relatability. She was an incredible, consequential figure who did immense, important philanthropic good works on behalf of backstretch workers and retired thoroughbreds, as well as SPAC, the Saratoga Hospital, and countless more charitable endeavors and community causes. Through all of these, through her spirit and kindness, Mary Lou Whitney played a critical role in shaping Saratoga's successes and our incredible quality of life. Mary Lou Whitney's advocacy helped our world-renowned historic Saratoga Racecourse stay open. Her horses were recognized as regular fixtures at the Belmont and Travers Stakes. She helped the Saratoga meet draw over 1 million annually and became a regular fixture in our community. And she claimed victories in both over a distinguished career as an owner. In speaking with her husband, John Hendrickson, he offered these powerful, poignant words. Mary Lou had a lot of loves in her life, but Saratoga was her most important love. She loved Saratoga because of the people. She would be thrilled that a part of Saratoga is being named after her. The state highway system being designated by my legislation as the Mary Lou Whitney Way runs adjacent to the Saratoga Racecourse, which is so befitting as our historic Saratoga Racehorse was shaped, strengthened, and supported by Mary Lou Whitney's generosity, vision, and enduring, indomitable spirit of always giving back and making a positive difference. Last year, my bill passed this chamber by a bipartisan vote of 62-1. I'm grateful for everyone's support then, and I am grateful for my colleagues' continued support of this measure that's so important to remember the life, legacy, and countless good works of Mary Lou Whitney, one of Saratoga's most important citizens. Thank you, Madam President, and my colleagues.
Senator Jordan to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce results.
In relation to calendar 909, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport, ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 911, Senate Print 7255A by Senator Oberacker, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 911, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport, ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 951, Assembly number 4069 by Assemblymember Thiel, an act to amend the Indian law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 992, Senate Print 639 by Senator Liu, an act in relation to ordering a study and report on a proposed extension of the Long Island Motor Parkway Trail.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 992, voted in the negative, Senator Akshar. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1003, Senate Print 3737A by Senator Comrie, an act to require the Director of Information Technology Services to undertake a detailed study of the comparative qualities of cloud computing services.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 1003, voted in the negative, Senator Akshar. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1013, Senate Print 8399 by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the retirement and Social Security law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Senator Jackson to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. My colleagues, I rise to explain my vote on S 8399, which allows court officers and peace officers injured on the job to receive accidental disability retirement. Now, this is an extremely important parity for state workers, and as any other officer forced into retirement as a result of an injury sustained on the job can apply for accidental disability retirement, court officers are the only officers that do not have that opportunity when they are injured in the line of duty. We have heard stories of officers putting themselves between judges and aggressors, doing their job to maintain the safety of the courtroom, left without support or protection. Unfortunately, Madam President, this important benefit has been consistently vetoed in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and I hope this governor will see the value of providing this crucial benefit to court officers that help keep courts safe. And for these reasons, I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. I proudly vote aye.
Senator Jackson to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1023, Senate Print 6761B by Senator Savino, an act to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day of the shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar number 1023, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Akshar, Borrello, Helming, Jordan, Lanza, O'Mara, Rath, Serino, and Tedisco. Ayes 52, nays 9.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1059, Senate Print 7416B by Senator Borrello, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Senator Borrello to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to express my honor for once again naming a road after a true hero. And Staff Sergeant David Texter is no exception. I will also point out that this small community of Randolph, New York, this is now the third time we have honored a hero, a military hero, for what they have done to serve our nation. I'm very proud to represent the community of Randolph, and I'm certainly proud to stand here and say that we, as a Senate, as a state legislature, and as a state, have taken many steps to ensure that heroes are honored so that their names will never be forgotten by naming roads and bridges after them. I think that's an appropriate way to ensure that future generations know that freedom is not free and that the foundation of our democracy is built on the backs of those who will serve, the small percentage of Americans who will serve, and the families that support them. So God bless Staff Sergeant Texter, and God bless all who serve the United States of America. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Borrello to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 1059, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1060, Senate Print 7649 by Senator Stavisky, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 1060, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1067, Senate Print 8681A by Senator Cooney, an act to amend the highway law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 1067, voted in the negative, Senator Brisport. Ayes 60, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1120, Senate Print 8398A by Senator Liu, an act to amend the tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Madam President, at this time, there will be an immediate meeting of the Rules Committee in room 332.
There'll be an immediate meeting of the Rules Committee in room 332.
Senate stands at ease.
The Senate will stand at ease. The Senate will return to order. Senator Gianaris.
Madam President, there's a report of the Rules Committee at the desk. Can we take that up, please?
The Secretary will read.
Senator Stewart-Cousins from the Committee on Rules reports the following bills. Senate Print 202 by Senator Kaplan, an act to amend the legislative law. Senate Print 300A by Senator Thomas, an act to amend the general business law. Senate Print 424A by Senator Hoylman, an act to amend the election law. Senate Print 1125 by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the agriculture and markets law. Senate Print 1165A by Senator Kaminsky, an act to amend the general business law. Senate Print 1373 by Senator Brooks, an act to amend the domestic relations law and the Family Court Act. Senate Print 4299A by Senator Lanza, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law. Senate Print 4532 by Senator Brooke, an act to amend the public health law and the insurance law. Senate Print 6302A by Senator White, an act authorizing Michael J. Capiello to purchase service credit for service with the Long Island Railroad Company, the police department. Senate Print 6562A by Senator Jordan, an act to amend the highway law. Senate Print 6570 by Senator Stavisky, an act to amend the penal law. Senate Print 6586A by Senator Liu, an act to amend the executive law. Senate Print 6800A by Senator Gianaris, an act to amend the tax law. Senate Print 7014 by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the racing, pari-mutuel wagering, and breeding law. Senate Print 7015 by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the penal law. Senate Print 7238A by Senator Tedisco, an act to authorize the town of Niskayuna in the county of Schenectady to offer certain retirement options to John F. Connor. Senate Print 7504A by Senator Steck, an act to amend the highway law. Senate Print 8087 by Senator Kennedy, an act to authorize the widow of Gerald J. Sullivan to file an application with the New York State and local police and fire retirement system. Senate Print 8192 by Senator Breslin, an act to amend the civil service law. Senate Print 8287 by Senator Bailey, an act to amend the executive law. Senate Print 8329 by Senator Mannion, an act in relation to authorizing Christopher Walser to take the competitive civil service examination for the position of police officer. Senate Print 8450B by Senator Cooney, an act to amend the general business law. Senate Print 8494A by Senator Matera, an act in relation to authorizing VFW Post 4927 to file an application for exemption from real property taxes. Senate Print 8568 by Senator Savino, an act to amend Chapter 730 of the laws of 2019. Senate Print 8578B by Senator Harcum, an act to amend the domestic relations law and the Family Court Act. Senate Print 8609 by Senator Akshar, an act to amend the highway law. Senate Print 8706 by Senator Akshar, an act to amend the general municipal law. Senate Print 8733 by Senator Boyle, an act in relation to authorizing the assessor of the town of Islip, County of Suffolk, to accept from the Iglesia del Dios an application for exemption from real property taxes. Senate Print 8816 by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the environmental conservation law. Senate Print 8828 by Senator Prasad, an act to amend Chapter 238 of the laws of 2021. Senate Print 8852 by Senator Comrie, an act to amend Part P of Chapter 39 of the laws of 2019. Senate Print 8880 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the real property tax law. Senate Print 8932 by Senator Serrano, an act to amend Chapter 192 of the laws of 2011. Senate Print 8942 by Senator Harcum, an act to amend Chapter 317 of the laws of 2020. Senate Print 8969 by Senator Martucci, an act to amend the executive law. Senate Print 8979A by Senator Kennedy, an act to amend the vehicle and traffic law. Senate Print 8993 by Senator Comrie, an act to amend Chapter 483 of the laws of 2017. Senate Print 9003 by Senator Kaplan, an act to amend Chapter 366 of the laws of 2011. Senate Print 9004 by Senator Brisport, an act to amend the social services law. Senate Print 9008 by Senator May, an act to amend the elder law. Senate Print 9035 by Senator Hoylman, an act to amend Chapter 455 of the laws of 1997. Senate Print 9037 by Senator Brooks, an act to amend the civil service law. Senate Print 9038 by Senator Brooks, an act to amend the general municipal law and the penal law. Senate Print 9044 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the elder law. Senate Print 9045 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the state finance law. Senate Print 9052 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the public authorities law. Senate Print 9076 by Senator Brooks, an act to amend Chapter 266 of the laws of 1981. Senate Print 9094 by Senator Liu, an act to amend the executive law. Senate Print 9095 by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the labor law. Senate Print 9096 by Senator Ramos, an act to amend the workers' compensation law. Senate Print 9117 by Senator Reckon Melnick, an act to amend the real property tax law. Senate Print 9129 by Senator Gurnardes, an act to amend Part U of Chapter 56 of the laws of 2018. Senate Print 9152 by Senator Sanders, an act to amend Chapter 526 of the laws of 1998. Senate Print 9184 by Senator Sepulveda, an act to amend the local finance law. Senate Print 9232 by Senator Harcum, an act to amend Chapter 378 of the laws of 2014. Senate Print 9296 by Senator Ryan, an act to amend the education law. Senate Print 9297 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend the private housing finance law. Senate Print 9300 by Senator Brooks, an act to amend the environmental conservation law. Senate Print 9301 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9302 by Senator May, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9304 by Senator Thomas, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9305 by Senator May, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9306 by Senator Mannion, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9307 by Senator Gorin, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9308 by Senator Kavanaugh, an act to amend Part U of Chapter 55 of the Law of 2014. Senate Print 9312 by Senator Henchy, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. Senate Print 9313 by Senator Stewart Cousins, an act to amend the Environmental Conservation Law. All bills report directed third reading.
Report of the Rules Committee.
All those in favor of accepting the report of the Rules Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The report of the Rules Committee is accepted. Senator
Is there
Gianaris.
any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
Move to adjourn until tomorrow, Tuesday, May 17th at 3 p.m.
A motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, May 17th at 3 p.m.